Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I just wanted to do a wrap up of all of the books that I read in July. So July was kind of a difficult reading month for me. I was sort of in a reading slump from the beginning of July to mid-July-ish. And honestly, it wasn't until the last 2 weeks of July that I really got any significant amount of reading done. And I'm very proud of myself for the amount of books that I ended up reading because I was really having a hard time getting through this one book called The Hierarchies that I really wanted to read for a while. Picked it up right after I got it in the mail and was just really struggling to get through it. I read about half of it and then just couldn't finish it. So I ended up DNFing that one, and then I moved on, and after I moved on, I felt like I was doing so much better with my reading. So without further ado, I want to talk to you about the 7 books that I read in July. So first up, I have a short story by Kazu Ishiguro because I'm obsessed with him because of Clara and the Sun. I read that in June and was just over the moon, loved it so much. So I picked up Come Rain or Come Shine, which is the tiny little Faber Stories edition. And I love the cover. I love how tiny and cute it is. And honestly, this was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. It follows the sort of friendship/relationship between a man and a woman he knew in college and this friend that he has that ended up marrying the girl. And he goes to their house and is basically staying with the woman while the guy is going out on a trip, I believe. I don't want to tell you a ton about it because it's only 76 pages, so I kind of went into it not knowing a ton about it. I just jumped in and was just so in love with the writing and how strange it was. It definitely felt like that true short story kind of style where you just are thrown into the middle of someone's life and you only get a tiny bit of it. And I loved it, so I gave this one 5 stars. Next up, I read Luster by Raven Leilani. This was a book that I picked up at a local bookstore that I had seen. Obviously, I've seen Luster everywhere, but I had never actually gone into a bookshop and picked it up. And I think this was one of those days where I was just going into the bookstore without anything that I particularly wanted, and I just wanted to buy something. That's honestly all it was. So I picked this one up and I read the description and I was like, how was I never drawn to this? I don't think that I ever actually opened this book up anywhere or read the description on Goodreads or anything, because I was like, oh, this sounds like something that's right up my alley. This sort of unlikable, kind of wandering through existence woman character. That doesn't make any sense, but you know what I mean. That kind of woman who is just struggling with herself and where her life is going and all of that. I've read so many books like that, and I don't know how I never picked this one up and was like, oh, that sounds right up my alley. So I picked it up and I immediately started reading it because I was so excited about it. And this basically follows our main character as she starts a relationship with a married man who is much older than her, and the relationship she has with his wife and his daughter. And these are 2 white people who have this adopted black daughter. So there's a lot of discussion of, her being sort of a role model towards this young girl because she's really the only other black person in this girl's life. There's a lot of development of the relationship between Edie, our main character, and the man's wife. There's more development of that than there actually is of the relationship between Edie and this man that she's dating. So it was a 4-star book for me. It wasn't a favorite because I think there was a lot in here that felt so nebulous and vague, and I think that's part of the point. I think Raven Leilani was trying to create a environment where you're kind of lost with Edie. And I appreciate that from a literary standpoint, obviously, but for me, I felt like it didn't get down into the grit of what Edie was feeling enough, just for me personally. So like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed the experience of reading it. I liked it a lot, but it wasn't an all-time favorite. So at this point is when I ended up trying to read the hierarchies and DNF'd it, and I didn't really start getting back into reading a lot, like I said, until the end of July. So the rest of the books that I have here are very like concentrated, like I read them all very recently, just because I finally felt like I wanted to read again. So the first of which is The Winglets Quartet, which is a Wings of Fire book by Tui T. Sutherland. This is sort of a collection of short stories based on the world of Wings of Fire and set in that world. And honestly, I'll just be upfront with you and tell you that I've been reading this book for literally months, because it's a book that my boyfriend and I have been reading together, and he's been reading the stories aloud to me. And I've been trying to get him to read the last story for quite a while so that I could get this off of my Goodreads currently reading shelf. And he finally did this month, so this is completed. It is, like I said, basically just 4 short stories about various characters in the Wings of Fire world, characters that we wanted to know more about that weren't like fully developed within the regular series. So it was definitely interesting and something that really helped enrich the world of Wings of Fire. But I didn't really love all of these so much, so I'm kind of between a 4 and a 5 star with this one, just because the series is my favorite of all time and I feel weird about giving one of them a 4 star, but there were definitely some sections of this that were kind of boring. So I don't know. But I read it, it's done, and I'm really happy I can finally get this off of my currently reading. All right, next up, I read a Shakespeare play because I was going to see the play All's Well That Ends Well in person. Near where I live, they have an outdoor Shakespeare situation. There's a company that does really, really awesome performances of Shakespeare plays, and they were finally back to doing them. I usually go every summer, but obviously last year they didn't have them. So this year they did, and I got to see the play, and it was wonderful. But I hadn't read All's Well That Ends Well before this, and I really wanted to have the experience of reading the play before I went to see the play, just so I could have more context and all of that. So I read this edition. This is the Pelican Shakespeare edition of All's Well That Ends Well. I'm collecting all of these, so all of the plays that I have of Shakespeare's are this edition. So I ordered this and I read it. And this is where I feel like it gets difficult to rate books sometimes, because I felt like the experience of reading this was a good experience. I felt like it really helped enrich the experience of seeing the play, and it helped with context and all of that. But it wasn't like the most exciting, fun book to read ever. I will say that some of Shakespeare's plays are like 4 and 5 stars. Like I love Comedy of Errors. I love Romeo and Juliet. Like there's definitely plays of his that I genuinely love. But this was kind of a 3 star because I felt like there was a lot of value to reading this, but it also wasn't like the most enjoyable book ever. So I read this. I'm glad that I read this. I can check it off of my list of all of the Shakespeare plays because I'm trying to make it through all of them. But yeah. All right, moving right along. I read Magma by Thora. I don't know how to say her name, so I'm so sorry, but this is an Icelandic author, and this was translated and published in English recently. I actually had been waiting on this book for quite a while. This was my most anticipated release of 2021, and I will tell you that it did not disappoint. Oh my God, was this a 5-star read. I started it and I got like 30 pages into it and I was like, let me go back. I need to annotate this. Like here's a page where I just wrote on the entire page. Basically, this book details an abusive relationship, so it is not a book for everyone. It was really hard to read at times. It's really upsetting and at times extremely frustrating because I think a lot of the point of this book was to create commentary on how obvious, quote unquote, an abusive relationship can look from the outside, and how hard it is to see it and change it when you are in the relationship. So I think that commentary is really important and works really, really well in this book. It is a bit frustrating because you're sitting there like, oh my gosh, everything that this man is doing is like textbook manipulation and abuse in so many different ways. And our main character is just not getting it or not seeing it, or she's seeing it but unable to get out of the cycle. It just spoke about the cyclical nature of abusive relationships and how impossible it can be to get out of them. And I found myself, relating to this character in a lot of ways. And I think it is a very, very valuable book. Even though it's not a book that everyone's going to be able to read, I think it really helped me work through some things in myself. I think the themes and the discussions in this book are very important, and I really, really, really enjoyed it, even though it was a hard book to read. So I think this is going to be in the top books of the year for sure. I don't know if like top 5, top 10, I don't know, but it was incredible, and I'm so happy that the book that I had been waiting for literally months was amazing. So 5 stars, read it if you're okay with those themes, read it. Okay, moving right along. Second to last book I read was Miss Ice Sandwich by Miko Kawakami. So I read Breasts and Eggs last month and absolutely loved it. It was my second favorite book of the month, after Clara and the Sun, obviously, but I loved it, and the translation was great. I loved the themes. It was awesome. So I picked up this very, very short novella by Miko Kawakami, and I gotta tell you, it was pretty weird. Like, I forget if I gave it 3 or 4 stars, but I did like it. It was just really strange and out there. It follows a young boy, I think he's in like 4th or 5th grade, and he's obsessed with this woman who makes sandwiches in his local supermarket. It's sort of about obsession and how a child fixates on a particular thing, especially when that child is not getting what they need at home. So there's a lot of like important commentary and interesting things being discussed, but it was just a little weird for me. So not a favorite, but I still feel like I'm glad I read it because I want to get through all of Kawakami's work because I think she's amazing. So yeah, not a favorite, but like I said, I'm really glad I read it. And the final book that I read in July was Mostly Dead Things by Kristen Arnett. Oh my goodness, I gave this 5 stars. This was recommended to me by my friend over on Instagram. Her name is Oddball Reads. I'll link her Instagram in the description. But she posted about this one. This was actually the first post that she made on her Instagram account recommending this book, and I finally got around to reading it. It was so good. I loved the writing. Basically, it follows this family of taxidermists, and our main character, Jessa, is basically the only person in the business left. Her father has committed suicide, and it's about the family dynamics and the grief and all of the things that come after that suicide. So the book goes back and forth in time. We have the current plot line, which is sort of dealing with the aftermath of the suicide and all of the family drama and dynamics that are going on, and Jessa trying to continue the taxidermy shop. And then we go into the past and see all of these memories with her family, her brother, and the woman that she's been in love with her whole life who ended up with her brother. So there's a lot of like really twisted dynamics there, and how she ends up kind of stuck in this weird place of being in love with and having a relationship with this woman who she grew up with, who was her best friend in childhood, and then seeing her brother marry this woman, have kids with this woman, and all of that craziness. So there's a lot of just family drama, family dynamics, dealing with trauma. It's very, very interesting. It's not something that I ever thought I would pick up, honestly. Like, who wants to read a book about taxidermy? Like, I just didn't think it would be something that I would ever be interested in. But let me tell you, this book totally blew me away. I immediately picked up Kristen Arnett's other book because, wow, I love her writing. The way that she creates family drama is just so interesting. So yeah, I really, really loved this book. Highly recommend. So good. And that was the final book that I read in July. So those were the 7 books that I read in July. Overall, kind of a mixed reading month. I had some struggles and I had some really, really great books that I read. So a mixed reading month. But I hope you had a good reading month in July. Let me know in the comments what your favorite book of July was. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.